You're listening to Edging the Truth.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 11 of Edging the Truth. Today, we are merging two of my favorite things. One thing is aviation, the other thing is conspiracy theories. Today, we're talking about Malaysian Airlines MH370 that disappeared in 2014, a little over 8 years ago, where 239 souls disappeared, $200 million have been used, 120,000 square miles have been searched, and one missing plane has never been found. What happened to MH370? Did it crash? If it did, where's the wreckage? Was it hijacked and landed in another country? If it did, where's the crew? And did it slowly decompress and then just fly off into the oblivion? Who knows? But where are the electronics? Because electronics don't need to breathe. So we have so many questions, so few answers, but about 10 different theories on what actually happened. And so I think today we'll discuss what we kind of think as a group happened, and then maybe open it up to you guys to call in and let us know what you think happened. What makes sense to you? I think that when we look at these kinds of conspiracies, being that it's newer, it's within the last decade, there's a lot of opportunity where we can say, hey, there's no evidence, but there hasn't been as much time for there to be evidence for certain things. So for me, I think that it makes sense that the airplane decompressed and just flew off and then crashed. I think that makes the most sense to me, just because there hasn't been any wreckage found. And I think that, if it was where they thought it was, they would have found the wreckage. And so that makes the most sense to me, because I think it's really hard to hide a whole plane and a whole crew and everything. But I'd like to turn it over to my colleagues here. We got Red Rasmus right above me. We got Brian Shenanigan. We got Andy to my left here, or AOP. And I'm going to pass it over to Red first. We're going to see what he thinks, and we'll go around the room.
Yeah,
Red?
I was fascinated researching this topic. As I was maybe saying to One Lung before the show, my dad used to work for Alaska Airlines and was in their marketing department, and later worked very closely with their crisis communications department. That was his area of specialty. So plane crashes was something he was very intimately familiar with, and something that I was around a lot as a kid, hearing about those sorts of things. And anytime there was one on television, I would get to hear his commentary about it, regardless of what the airline was. But I think in all the things that I read and saw, the most fascinating and for me, the best coverage that I saw was the 60 Minutes Australia. There was like a round table of aviation kind of authorities from all over the world. And it was fascinating to kind of hear them talk about how somewhat destructive conspiracy theories can be in these sorts of situations, in terms of how to deal with families and families that start to believe that maybe UFOs took this plane out of the sky, or that the U.S. military shot it down. And there's, as One Lung said, there are a lot of theories behind this. Most of them don't fit for me. I was really I felt the most compelling evidence, if we're going back to evidence, was one of the aviation specialists most recently talking about how one of the sort of the fins on the plane was found intact, and because it was found intact, and because of the damage they found on it, they were able to say, well, it appears that the pilot did try to safely land the plane in a controlled descent. And if that's true, a lot of these theories go right out the window. And that's sort of where, we've talked a lot in this podcast about needing evidence for these theories. And in a lot of cases, the theories come from one person. This theory that maybe it was stolen away to some military base. Well, that's one person with one book with no evidence, and their theory comes out in the epilogue. It's not the basis of their book. The evidentiary part of this, because it is so small, it can only mean a few things to me. And it definitely doesn't sound like too many things that are nefarious, although it could very certainly have been some, I think the theories behind a potential rogue pilot and a co-pilot seem not out of the realm of possibility. It's clear that something definitely happened on that plane that didn't allow it to continue the way that it had taken off. So whether that was because a gun went off in the cabin and it depressurized and everybody died that way, or whether they cut off the oxygen supply to the cockpit in an attempt to kill everybody before they tried to make the plane disappear, or any one of the other kinds of theories like this, I just felt like, well, until they start looking again and find this thing, we're not going to know, which that to me is the number one red flag to finish up my bit, is that there's been no looking for this thing for 4 years. And now there's some interesting new evidence and theories. I really like the guy who was a ham operator and had triangulated all the disturbances in the radio signals to create where the plane probably went, and the fact that it was in a holding pattern for X amount of time, and why would it do that right before it crashed? That was fascinating to me. But the fact that nobody is doing anything to move the ball forward anymore, that's always a big flag of like, well, I guess somebody doesn't want people to know.
Or they found the answer already.
Or the answer is known, and it is an answer that the Malaysian government, for whatever reason, does not want to get out into the public, and or some other government. But I can't. At the end of the day, if the United States government shot a Malaysian Airlines flight out of the sky without Malaysia being involved in that, we would know about it by now.
Yeah, and I think that the decompression is interesting because being somebody that's been low on oxygen before and kind of knows what it's like, you kind of go into like a euphoric state where you don't really realize what's going on until it's too late, and then all of a sudden you're passed out and, you're to a point where, there's no coming back from that. So had there been a decompression, maybe not even from a gunshot, but from the plane just decompressing on its own, there's a mechanical failure and they don't know about it, it may be really difficult to realize that that's what's happening.
And that would explain, I think that explains why, for example, there's no distress, no people getting on their cell phones to call their loved ones and say, that inevitably always happens. Number one. Number two, there's no terrorist organization that ever claimed responsibility for this, which is also something that inevitably always happens in these cases. So the fact that those things are kind of missing in this, it makes it a little harder for me to believe anyway, the kind of the bigger conspiracy theories. Again, a conspiracy theory means it's a theory, and B, that people conspired to do this. How many people were involved in conspiring to do this? If something was in fact done, I don't think it's more than I can count on my hand. Interesting.
Let's go over to Brian. What do you think, Brian?
Oh man, I think, what are we doing this for, fellas? It's a plane crash. I mean, come on, what is? Yeah.
But where's the plane?
I was remarking the other day how how much I like doing this podcast, but the one thing that I don't like doing this podcast is it forces me to do this research on this shit that I just do not give a fuck about. You know what I'm saying? I have to go down these rabbit holes of conspiracy theories and watch these crazy fucking people who believe this stuff, that think this fucking that people were even Scientology is weighted on this, where they think that they fucking had that shit where all their spirits went and whatever. It was a whole thing of Scientologists in Malaysia that went down. I mean, but it's like you said, oh, how come we haven't found? It's like, bro, we still haven't found Spanish galleons, okay? From Columbus days. All right, they're still finding shipwrecks and down planes and crap like that. I mean, we couldn't find wreckages from World War II stuff also that they're still finding, and that shit we knew where it was. You know what I'm saying?
But those didn't have transmitters and stuff on it like these planes did.
Yeah, but I mean, especially if it was a water landing, or they were attempting a water landing, like the one, this whole metal piece of evidence says. I mean, I've seen the plane crash videos when that shit goes. The planes they're pieces. They disintegrate. They're gone. Yeah, it's dust. And moreover, it's and there's a lot of beach all over the world and a lot of ocean all over the world. And even if those pieces are floating, they're floating into random beaches, and it's not like these people are doing trash cleanup or hey, is this piece of metal from that plane that went down, or just a piece of metal I got to pick up off the beach? You know, and it's like, so it's like there's probably lots of pieces that were found, not found. You know what I'm saying? Or sitting on a beach somewhere that's not a human beach, that's just in a corner somewhere. Nobody's ever going to find that trash. I mean, it's.
Yeah, this is in Malaysia and Indonesia and Indian
I
Ocean.
notice a lot of these conspiracy theories too are things that I feel like TV shows are based on. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there was that, what was it, like the 3000 or 300, like the one where the people were all on a plane and disappeared and come back and they were all on that and they're like, we were on the plane. What happened?
Oh yeah, that was just that was like on a few years ago.
There's
Manifest?
multiple, but there's
Manifest.
multiple multiple
Manifest.
shows like that. There's more than one show like that. There's been multiple things of like
Lost.
There's the thing on the site. Yeah, all this stuff where it's like this whole thing of planes disappearing and reappearing. It goes back to the whole Bermuda Triangle thing. It's like planes disappearing is always a thing, but sometimes planes crash all the time, and they crash all over the world pretty much daily. It's just not really like, spoken of and stuff. Like aviation is a dangerous business, and especially in these older countries, they don't maintain their planes. There's plane crashes every day. But it's. And it's like you said, they quit looking 4 years ago. They found their answers and moved on. The insurance companies paid the checks. They moved it along. I mean, that really was it. Because it was just a plane crash. And I think because some of these stories and media and stuff sensationalize some of these things, and I think in the time we live in right now of the fake news and all that kind of stuff, for people who consume media. And on the rate we consume media, the line between fantasy and reality is so blurred for some people. I mean, there's people that think that the Game of Thrones is out there, that we gonna have dragons. I mean, there's people, you know what I'm saying? Like the blend is real. And moreover, if the Malaysian government did find out that it was something or pilot error or somebody shot it down or something random, it's not like that's an open country, it's not an open government. They're not an open country. They may have all the answers and stuff. And it's just like, oh well, we're keeping that under wraps because we don't want that bad press for the Malaysia, and that's just is what or for their, because it is a government owned airline, so they don't want press for their airline of their country. So it's so if they found the answers, whatever. But to counter one thing Red said at the time, more than one terrorist group did claim credit for taking down this plane.
Oh, did they? I somehow missed it.
Yes. But it was, they were debunked early on that there was, no, and blah, blah, blah. But it was still like people there were people that took credit for it at the time.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it's plane crash. Is it a famous plane crash? Yes. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is a famous plane crash, but I don't think that there's any more conspiracy to it than that, and if aliens took a plane, okay, they took the plane, they ain't coming back either. I don't think they're gonna return it. So either way, even if it was taken by aliens, that shit might as well be crashed because it's gone.
Well, I'd like to thank Brian for making me excited for flying on a plane next week. So, we're gonna move on to.
You think you're gonna get
Andy
aliens on your plane to Vegas?
Yeah, like planes crash every week. Okay, every day.
But not in other countries. That's why we have an FAA. But moreover, when you get on that Alaska flight, man, make sure you get the savory mix. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Don't let them try to pawn off the pretzels to you. Get that savory mix.
Oh, I'm good.
They don't
give
you the little fucking cookies. Fuck them. All right, that's what I'm trying to tell you.
What's going on, Andy? What do you think?
Yeah, as if I didn't have enough anxiety about flying already. But you guys got this all wrong, bro. They went back in time. They had time paradox.
You knocked around us. Okay. Okay.
They fucking
that is one
they
of the
landed
things.
in Beijing 50 years ago. Jokes on all of you. No. I don't know, dude. Brian, I thought I connected with what you said with the kind of why were we doing this one, because I think it is just a plane crash, but there is a lot of stuff here. I think the amount of different stories and different theories about just this one topic is like super interesting. And I thought that psychologist that they talked to that like wrote the book or whatever about conspiracy theories. And I think a lot of this has to do with like the lack of response and just the lack of answers that not only the Malaysian government, the Beijing or not, the Chinese government, any people power gave on the subject. And I think at a certain point is people want answers. People want to know what happened. And if they're not given to them from the people that they're expected to get those answers from, they're going to start coming up with some shit, i.e. this whole, the U.S. shot the plane down. The U.S. there was a bunch of Motorola electronics that the United States didn't want the Chinese to get. So they sent 2 planes to make the Malaysian one invisible to the radar. And then, the flight path and then the sharp turn to the left. I don't know, man. I just don't know what to make of this. I think it's, if you really sit down and think about it, the pilot murder suicide makes one of the most sense. What One Lung was saying about the depressurized cabin or even like a fire in the cockpit makes the most sense. This pilot, his wife had just left him. He was going through a bunch of shit at home. He was a supporter of this guy that was trying to overthrow the government or whatever, who just got sent back to jail for sodomy. And I don't remember who it was, but one of the flight experts or whatever was talking about the turn left and was like, there's no way he would have turned left. He said he turned left because he was looking at his whatever the island is called or the town is called with a P. He was looking at that again. He made it look like somebody was taking one last look at what they are at his home, and then before taking that motherfucker down. But I think like the parts of the plane they say are the part of the plane that have washed up, on Madagascar and a couple other islands around the Indian Ocean. It's interesting, but how do you know for sure that it's from that plane? Like Brian said, especially a plane coming down, that impact, like on the water, is like a car going full speed, like into a brick wall. Like it's not the same thing, but the pressure of when it hits, it's going to do some damage. So I just don't. And then I don't know how they really, like, if the communications got cut off and the last ping is here, like, how do you know, like, oh, they're in the wrong part of the ocean or whatever? Like, I just don't know if at any point you're ever going to find this thing. And it does suck for, all the families of the people that were involved. It's not just the crew members. There was 250 people on that plane, which sucks. I thought some of the stories were interesting, like Putin and the Russians stole it, and the planes in Kazakhstan or
North Korea.
What was the island with the U.S. military base on it?
Oh yeah, Garcia.
It's like
Diego Garcia.
Yeah, Diego Garcia. It's like they're all just now living on this tiny island and nobody knows about it. Or like you said, Red, if the United States shot the plane down, somebody would know about it by now. I did think it was interesting that they went back to the pilot's like flight simulator that he had at his house that he built himself, and they found like a bunch of routes of him like practicing on like small runways where, that was one of the theories, that he just kind of took this plane to one of these small tiny islands and either crashed it there or what. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's an interesting topic. I had fun kind of researching this, despite what Brian said about not giving a fuck. But yeah, I think we're just looking at a plane crash here, and I think the real conspiracy theory is like what made him crash, right? But I don't know. Yeah. I'm not bringing much to the table here, fellas.
Well, there's a lot of stuff we probably won't ever know, too, right? Like, unless we can't know. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that it was a murder suicide. Well, there's no note. The dude's dead. We're not going to find him. we're never going to get that answer. It will always be, unfortunately, speculation, which again also completely is the worst part of this for those families, those hundreds and hundreds of people.
They just want to latch onto one piece of hope.
Yeah, one piece of hope. Like, oh, maybe they're out there on an island somewhere, still okay. 8 years later, those that maybe
Tom Hanks again.
You know, yeah.
Well, I think one of the most interesting pieces for me is the fact that there's been they searched 120,000 square miles, right, of this area that it could be, and they couldn't find any bit of debris really in the ocean. And I understand the ocean is a vast area, but we're talking about 2014, where we have very good tracking devices, very good electronics to check where planes are. And we couldn't find it in 120,000 square miles.
Yeah. I mean, all that is also if it works, when it works. We know technology ain't 100%.
Well, that was the argument that I saw.
Especially after it survived a plane crash. And it's like, yeah, it may have had all that stuff, but in the end, if it's just a field of metal and fabric and luggage, it's it's just another garbage pile in the ocean necessarily that you just can't distinguish.
Well, and that was what the ham radio guy theories, thing kind of leaned into.
Well, and can I throw this back to you, Mikey, as a reverse host question? Reverse host. So you picked this topic because you got into an argument with somebody about this, and I kind of want to hear what that argument was, and which side were you on, and what were some of their points about this flight? Is really what I want to hear.
Well, actually, I heard about it and listened to an argument between. I wasn't in the argument.
Oh, okay.
I just heard an argument about it, and it was more the fact that they had argued that there was a wormhole that it went into. And
holy crap! It wasn't even like a plausible argument. We were over in wormhole country. Okay.
And that's one thing that after doing my own amount of research on this over the past couple weeks, that I don't feel like it was a wormhole. But the fact that there's very little evidence that a plane crashed, it's like maybe it did go into a wormhole. And I am a believer of aliens and of supernatural things, so why couldn't it be a wormhole? And so I couldn't find anything that kind of led me down the wormhole thing, but nothing that actually dissuaded me away from it either.
We were on the premise of wormholes, though.
Oh yeah,
we were.
And that was the 60 Minutes guys. The 60 Minutes guys spoke specifically about these things. They said, these people come to us and ask us to disprove theories like that. Disprove that it wasn't aliens. Disprove that it wasn't a wormhole. Disprove that it wasn't quantum physics. And they go, we can't disprove these things.
Can you prove it on the other end?
This is exactly this is exactly the problem. You can't do either one. So you can't prove it and you can't disprove it. So of course, depending on how you think of it, you can go, well, that makes it completely still possible, or that makes it completely not possible. Depending on how you choose to look at that argument.
That could be true for anything you ever said ever. I could possibly be the Queen of England, but what I'm saying?
You're right. No, 100%. I'm with you.
That is not true.
But to a certain amount of the population, if I get enough of them going.
Related.
I just think that it's a interesting thought that a plane.
What
a plane that crashed less than a decade ago. We can't find it, and now we're talking about wormholes, and I just think it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I also love planes.
What were you saying, Fudge? So I know the vibes.
Yeah, call me Brian Shenanigan Jr. All the holds I could ever want.
We'll call you Shy Jew.
Yeah. Shy. I'm a shy Jewish boy.
Is a shy Jew boy.
I'm a shy Jew boy that loves wormholes. But obviously, I'm not trying to make light of the situation or whatever. But I mean, I think that would be that's best case scenario here that they went into a wormhole.
I think that's that is up there in the top tier.
Yeah. What politician got dragged for saying they went into a black hole? And there's some. I don't remember who it was, but somebody said, well, what if it was a black hole And then another senator responded and said, "Well, if it was
Racist.
a black hole, then the whole wouldn't our whole universe be swallowed up?" And then that
Yeah.
just the whole thing, and that's just way over my head. But I'm pro wormhole here. That's all I gotta say.
Pro wormhole.
So I think that
I did have one more thing I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
What about this French reporter that
Yeah.
dedicated the last 8 years of her life to reporting on this incident, and she firmly believes that the US blew it up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's debunked a ton of other theories. Obviously, she's I know my theory is pretty wild. I don't expect you to 100% believe me, but just know that this is all I've worked on for the past 7 to 8 years. I mean, I know we talk a lot about, what these theories we talk about, sometimes just come from one person, and there is something to be said about, if you work on anything for 7 years, you could start to get obsessed about it.
You don't want that shit to go to waste, that you wasted your life.
Exactly.
So you want to get paid for that time.
Exactly. But that was just something that was kind of compelling to me. But it just feels like if the U.S., if they blew up a commercial airline flight, especially in the 2010s, we're going to hear about it. And it's not going to take 8 years to figure that out. And, if it did, one of the greatest cover-up stories of all time. Like I said it earlier, it was pretty weird how the Malaysian government is blaming these two Iranian dudes that got fake passports, but then their prime minister says, "Oh, he looks like Mario Balotelli," and then you see the recording of him, and they look nothing like him. If you know who Mario Balotelli is, an Italian soccer player of African descent. That's this big, tall, black guy with a mohawk. These were two short Middle Eastern guys on this video. It's just a lot of stuff doesn't make sense here. And then there's we can't share information from other countries, radar pings or whatever. Which I guess I kind of get that, but the whole vibes of this thing are weird. Which ultimately I think it sucks because it is. I think we're ultimately just talking about a plane crash. There's tons of technical stuff that could have gone wrong. I thought the people hacking into the plane or somebody getting into the electrical part from a hatch in the first class was interesting, but I just blame Putin. He's in the news now. Just blame him.
First class is such a private thing that you can be up there opening hatches and nobody's going to say,
nobody's going to notice that.
Disconnecting the air.
Sir, did you want another champagne? Please leave the hatch alone.
I think that the craziest piece of this is what Red mentioned, is the fact that we just kind of quit searching for it 4 years ago. And by we, I mean the powers that be. They just stopped looking. Okay, we found the answer. Now we're done looking. And whatever the answer is, whether it's a wormhole, they're on an island somewhere, it crashed, whatever the answer is, whoever it is has deemed that they have found the answer and there's no more searching needed. And I think that's the most compelling argument of this whole thing. And that's where I lean to it. Probably you're right. It probably is just a plane crash, but it's a weird plane crash at that. So
they spent $140 million on the
200 million
on the
200 million,
and then they found absolutely nothing.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
At what point? Yeah, it's.
I don't think that anybody stopped because they decided they found their answers. I don't necessarily think that those two things go hand in hand. I think maybe the decision to stop is because they don't believe the answers are out there. And that's maybe why the search stopped.
Ooh,
now
that's interesting.
I would think that, again, back to the financial aspect of it, if we've spent $200 million and we haven't found the answer, conclusion, the answer, we're not going to find it. Really, does another $200 million get us the answer? Does another $800 million get us the answer?
Except for it's only been 8 years. Think about things that we've been searching for hundreds of years, and we're still.
It can still be found. I fully believe that it could be found someday. I don't disagree with that statement at all.
The one theory is they're not even looking in the right place.
Yeah.
For it, And let's say if the whole plane did hit the water and stay intact at all, or the main cabin at all, who's to say that large fucking piece of metal with 300 people in it isn't at the bottom of the ocean or didn't sink far enough where they're not going to find it?
Yeah.
I think they said they searched the ocean floor. So maybe I just sounded really stupid, but
not everywhere. Even the most recent thing that
we haven't even searched all the ocean normally.
Yeah, I mean, the most recent thing that was the guy with the ham radio theory, and that's fairly recent in the sort of timeline of the investigation, quote unquote. And so is the French journalist's book. That's, I think, came out a year ago. But that was sort of the premise. The premise was that either the pilot had attempted to safely land the plane for a water landing, and then the evidence, both the little flap that was found from the aviator guy plus that bit of it could equal that, but also an attempt to deliberately sink the plane and have it never be found intact. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also potentially, again, we don't have evidence for any of these theories, but that seems plausible enough for me. Like, well, if you got a crazy pilot and co-pilot that schemed to do this thing together, yeah, okay, I can make those jumps.
One of them scheming against it, not
one killed the other guy. I mean, I don't know how all of those scenarios
could depressurize the plane as well. I mean, he could do all of those things,
and that was definitely an argument that he took out the cabin, and that's that whether the cabin was depressurized or deprived of oxygen intentionally or whatever. That all seems like, I could buy a lot of those scenarios. I just feel like until they find this thing, until we get that black box, until we get something that is more conclusive, it still is just going to be a mystery, unfortunately.
Just a theory.
Yeah, it's all just theories.
I think let's go around the room one more time. Let's just recap what our thoughts are, and then we'll take this. We'll land this plane safely.
Land the plane.
Yeah, nice metaphor.
Let's start with you, Andy.
Piece of shit. I can't. Too soon. First of all, too soon for my liking. One long. But yeah, I said it. First thing I said. Back in time, bro. They're back in time.
Back in time.
It's funny how Brian talked about the TV shows. It's because that literally Manifest. It actually is a pretty good show.
It was.
It was 2 or 3 seasons, but it did come out, and I'm kind of like, okay, I see what they're doing here. Yeah. I think there are some interesting theories here, but I'm choosing to believe something went wrong in that with the plane, whether that was a fire, depressurized cabin, electrical problems. One of the pilots had a death wish, murder, suicide, or I think those are really it was a plane crash, man. It sucks. It was a plane crash.
All right, Red, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I fall fairly in line with Andy on this. I feel like the reasonable explanations, the reasonable theories seem plausible enough to me to go, that's possible. Again, though, I don't think I have any legs to stand on other than the same, that this was a plane crash and we may never get answers to it. There are many plane crashes that don't have answers. So this is just sadly another one.
Yeah. Also, one last thing. Also, the co-pilot was known to bring people into the cockpit. Like he had brought people in the cockpit in 2011 as well. So it could be pilot error there.
Sat on his lap and he was just fucking railing cigarettes the whole time. I kind of like
that. I wouldn't want to fly. I wouldn't want to fly any plane in Malaysia. Period.
Like
I'm sorry.
Sounds like a Brian job. Yep.
This is Brian's co-pilot.
Man, planes kind of fly themselves these days.
Well, Brian, round us out here. What do you think?
All right. Well, I mean, let me just kind of, make my final points that, people believe that, any plane that crashes, that wasn't, people already believe that any plane that crashes was a conspiracy theory. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, that plane didn't really crash. They believe that about crashes across the board going way back. I said, Bermuda Triangle, a lot of this stuff, planes disappearing. It's, stuff happens. I think there's Mediterranean and like other equivalent of those kind of Bermuda Triangle stories. It is a common theme. It is a common aviation theme. It is one of those things of like and I think aviation and even like ocean stuff, like where stuff they go missing and never come back kind of thing. Amelia Earhart, all those kind of planes disappearing stuff. And just to like that, there was that one guy that, where he had those radio waves where he said the plane was circling or whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, that's, that he was probably trying to burn fuel so they would make the water landing if he had to make a water landing. That might be why it was circling. That is also a common thing that would have happened. But if it was the old suicide crashing and whatnot, man, like it's like I said, we've all seen plane crashes like in those videos and stuff, like when they're trying to like stop. When they're trying, like when you see those plane crash videos where the plane is going full speed, and if that guy was going full speed at the water, that plane is just it's liquid, it's gone. I mean, it's like the pieces are tiny pieces just because of the velocity, and it is jammed so deep in the water so fast, nothing's coming back up.
Jamming fast,
deep and fast. Story. But like it's the simplest answer, the easiest. It's just a plane crash. I mean, it's that's always the thing. But I think also, like I said, they spent $200 million on this, and they listened to the kooks. They did vet out the conspiracies. They did go where somebody's like, oh no, if I've calculated the tides and all that stuff, and you should be searching here. They searched those heres. That's how they spent $200 million and looked for a long time. Because they did go through a lot of these theories. They did talk to all these crackpots. Hell, I'm sure the wormhole guy came through. You know what I'm saying? Like, talk to the Malaysian government, especially because everybody wants a little money from the government and there's money to be handed out. A lot of kooks. Yeah, I mean, it was a plane crash. Sometimes if you hear the hoofbeats, you think horses, not zebras. It's the simplest answer. That's the correct answer. And I think it was a plane crash.
Yeah,
like force them out for them. But I don't wish that on that. I wish their families had a little more closure and stuff. But any of those scenarios, it's that plane just gone. Even if you say assorted warp holes, aliens, other bric-a-brac, spirited to another dimension, ghosts took them, Bigfoot abducted them. Whatever conspiracy you want to attach on top of it.
Leprechauns took over the
plane and spirited them away on the rainbow. Like whatever you want to say for that. Like, the plane is gone. Whatever the scenario was, the plane is gone. And it's probably not coming back as seen on TV. So,
but I said it in the beginning. I agree. I think that it was most likely a mechanical failure. My personal opinion is the decompression makes sense with there being no call outs for help, no maydays, no anything, So I think that makes sense. And I think for us at Edging the Truth, I think that for all of us to come together again and kind of say, okay, this conspiracy theory probably doesn't hold as much merit as what some would believe. I think that that's a good testament to where we stand. So, Red, you wanted to talk about something that is exciting that's coming up pretty soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, if you heard our last episode, you heard our voicemail from the outlandish one, Zicky Dice. We received another phone call from Zicky on our voicemail line. And once again, Zicky Dice's Outlandish Paradise 2, Trouble in Paradise, is taking place April 1st. When this episode comes out, it will be the Monday of that week. April 1st is on a Saturday, I believe. So we're days away when you hear this episode, if not maybe even past the date of that. But let's hear what Zicky has to say.
Zicky Dice again. Got some good news, got some bad news. God, I don't know how to say this. I blew the budget, guys. I'm hoping we can keep this between ourselves, not get this public, but maybe, I don't know, is there anything else we can do? I'll be honest. It was late night. We started off at the casino, and then we met this dancer. She had this ping pong balls and this mayonnaise and this. Never mind about that. But the good news is, Zicky Dice's Trouble in Paradise, the show is still on, live from WrestleCon, Dallas, Texas, April 1st, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, twitch.tv/Zicky Dice. We can keep this between us, yeah? I don't want the dirt sheets right in my ass. Just edge the truth a little bit, all right?
That's awesome.
Outlandish.
Outlandish is right. We love hearing from Zicky. We're so excited to be a
Outlandish.
part of his event. We are sponsors of Trouble in Paradise, taking place on April 1st. And again, you can find everything you need to know about this event at zickydice.com. It will be streamed live on twitch.tv/zickydice. We're all huge wrestling fans. There are a ton of amazing shows. I'm going to throw a ton of amazing matches. Let me show you the current lineup poster there on the screen. We've got
there's a woman fighting a bear. That's all I'm going to say to you guys.
Yes,
there's
exactly.
a woman fighting a bear, and that's all you got to say.
If you've never seen wrestling before, you will never see wrestling like this. I guarantee it. Like I said, we're super excited to be a part of this event. We've been following Zicky on Twitch for a long time, if not in the wrestling world at large. And we're so excited to be attached to his event, and we're just excited to be able to see this event ourselves. The first Outlandish Paradise was a huge success, 500,000 views. Just a fabulous event. So we're so thankful. And I have to add here, just to bring us back to topic, Brian, this is the first episode, I believe, that you didn't date somebody connected to the topic.
Did
you ever date a flight? You never dated a flight attendant, pilot, co-pilot, or somebody from Malaysia?
All right, yeah, I think I've done 2 out of 3 of those. But
Okay.
But
Way to not let us down, bro.
But 2 seats every time he flies.
I knew if I pulled that out of you, we get to the truth.
But I mean, I didn't know. I guess I didn't realize I had to insert it into the. I didn't think this topic deserves lady business.
It into them. Come on, spill the deets, big guy.
Dude, this is your bit in the show. You're the negative Nelly, and you're the person who always has slept with somebody connected to the topic,
or attempted to sleep with,
or attempted.
The biggest liar on the show.
All of these things can be true. However, can we bring up that Zicky Dice thing again, though?
Yes, please.
That thing.
Yes,
bring
the
up
poster?
the match poster. Yes.
Here we go.
Because I'm like there's like star power on there. You know what I'm saying? Classic Sky Too Hottie with Rich Swann there. Marsha Slamovich is making a big thing, and she's fighting. If she is fighting a literal bear, Effie taking on.
I mean, Brian slept with girls that fought bears before.
I've fought a bear in my day. I mean, she definitely did. But I mean, Effie versus Speedball Bailey is that's a great match. I mean, Effie can beat him just by stepping on his exposed toes. Black Taurus, who is a phenomenal wrestler, against Lindsay Dorado, who I'm not as.
Did you see that Speedball Mike Bailey retweeted you, Brian?
No, I did not.
He retweeted you saying no to putting on shoes. He said no, Brian, no.
See,
I love it. I love it.
Put on some shoes. I can't help but put on some shoes.
Some shoes.
I'm concerned about the man's feet and his long-term career. All right.
We knew you were a foot fetish guy.
And also, I would like to point out to these Zicky Dice that we have a fantasy wrestling league that we are in, and Red Raspis has you on his team, and I love promo points, and you're not getting a lot of wins, but you're still doing good matches, and frankly, he's not win. They're out sometimes. Dice is getting too jobbed out. Funny the way you said that. All right.
He's gonna get his due.
The point is, he's a professional, and he makes good matches even when he's getting jobbed because
he certainly does.
He's great at the business. That's why I love Zicky Dice. We support him here. And look at this sign up. Come see this. And I'm sure I feel like that more will be inserted. I feel like it's very possible this will be expanded even more. So,
furthermore, if you want to leave a voicemail just like Zicky Dice did, you can definitely give us a call. You can talk to us 917-979-6071, and you can leave a voicemail about the topic we talked about today, or a topic you want to hear us talk about.
Yeah, we would love to hear from you on any topic whatsoever. Comments on a past episode, suggestions for a new episode, a story that you would love to share with us. As one of our episodes, episode 9, is all based around one of our voicemails. So we would love to hear from you. It would be fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, check us out on social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Edging the Truth. Also, subscribe to the YouTube, like this video, comment, share us with a friend. YouTube.com/Edging the Truth. If that's too much for you, simply just go to www.edgingthetruth.com. It has all of our episodes right on those pages. It has a player linked from our YouTube. You can watch the video right there on our website. You can listen to it right there from our website. It's got links to all of our social media. It's got special little bios for all of us. Brian has his, what do we call it? He has a list of all of his lovers in his bio. Make sure you check that out. Kind of a sneak peek to our future episodes.
It's an Excel spreadsheet.
It's
ever changing.
There's
he
tabs.
only uses Excel. We can't get him to use anything else.
No, I'm all about that open office life. You know that.
Absolutely. But check us out. We thank everybody so much for all the support. We thank Zicky Dice for letting us be a part of his thing, and we're so happy to be a part of it and be able to make that happen. Hopefully he gets the budget figured out, because that's a little embarrassing for us. But anyways, plane crash.
Ping pong balls.
Thanks for listening to One Lung's Book Report.
Malaysia.
Visit edgingthetruth.com for more information and links to all our social media and podcast directories.